So hi everyone, welcome to our class today, the Dharma class using Zoom. So I like to say up front, happy Vesak to everybody. The date was yesterday, the 5th of May, commemorating the birth, enlightenment and passing away of the Buddha. And I'll say up front as well, so I don't forget later, our friend Kien Dang, who occasionally participates with us. Unfortunately, her husband, Peter, passed away 2 nights ago. And she let me know the next morning. And so I have been doing the prayers for him. And we should dedicate all of our merits to Peter and his attainment of birth in the Pure Land, and also to attain enlightenment as swiftly as possible. Okie dokie. So I said that up front, and now we can do the chanting, followed by the meditations. And then I'll just speak a little bit about Vesak for a few minutes. And then, of course, we continue our commentary on the 8 verses of thought transformation. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddham Saranam Gacchami, Dhammam Saranam Gacchami, Sangham Saranam Gacchami, Dudayambi Buddham Saranam Gacchami, Dudayambi Dhammam Saranam Gacchami, Dudayambi Sangham Saranam Gacchami, Tatayambi Buddham Saranam Gacchami, Tatayambi Dhammam Saranam Gacchami, Tatayambi Sangham Saranam Gacchami. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May they be free from suffering and its causes. May they never be parted from the happiness beyond suffering. May they abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment to the near, and aversion from the far. I shall cause this. Great compassionate Buddha, please inspire me to be able to do so. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every types of offerings, actual and mentally transformed. I confess all of my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in all the virtues of all holy and ordinary beings. These remain until cyclic existence ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for all sentient beings. I dedicate the virtues of myself and others to the great enlightenment. However innumerable all sentient beings are, I vow to save them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Tayata gate gate para samgate bodhisu. Tayata gati gati para sumgati bodhisu. Tayata gati gati para sumgati bodhisu. So we have some weather here down at Phillip Island. It's very cold, very wintry. And I was a bit silly, actually. I went for my walk a bit late today, and the wind has affected me. It's been a very cold wind, blowing straight along the beach. But still, it's always nice to have a walk on the beach too. So I just got back. Anyway, just a little bit more detail to do with Kien. I've known Kien since 2009. And she was the very first person who welcomed me to the Kuan Min temple in Melbourne when I went to see the abbot of the temple, Tai Fuk Tan. And so, yeah, just by chance we met there. And of course, she was involved with the UN Vesak celebrations, basically her temple's sort of liaison and on the committee as well. And so we worked together a fair bit doing the musicals that some of the children from that temple were involved with, along with the Sakyamuni Sambuddha Vihara temple children. And so Kien and I worked very closely together on many, many occasions. Of course, we haven't seen each other now for a few years since before the pandemic started, but have kept in touch. And also, as I mentioned, she has attended or participated with us many times. I don't think so recently, maybe a little busy. And so if we can dedicate all of our goodness, all of our merits to her husband, Peter Donella, and, like I said, wishing for, they practice a Pure Land tradition, so wishing for the rebirth in Sukhavati, the Amitabha Buddha's Pure Land of ultimate bliss, and then swiftly attaining enlightenment to bring benefit to all living beings. And so I think I mentioned to Kien by text message that I was going to mention this in the class today too. And of course, Mum and I are going to dedicate the merits, as in the Mahayana tradition, for 49 days straight, at least, and then continue onwards from there as well, as part of our evening chanting and meditation practice. Okay, so now we can, as I say, always forget everything I just said for the moment, and let's bring our mind inside our body to release the tension from the body. So you can gently close your eyes, lips gently touching. And then in your own time, not too quick, not too slow though, release the tension from your feet all the way up to your shoulders, down to your hands, and then back up to the top of your head again. And when you've done that, just scan your body again to see if there's any more tension that you can release. Now place your mind initially at the tip of your nose and follow the feeling of the breath as you breathe all the way into your lungs and then back out your nose again. Breathing in, breathing out. And don't try to regulate your breath, long breaths, short breaths, things like that. Just breathing naturally. You can also add the extra technique of counting the breaths, with one in-breath and one out-breath being one, and so on. Don't count past 10. And if your mind becomes distracted while you're counting towards 10, go back to 1 at that time. thoughts arise or any other mental activity, distractions arise, don't cling to them. Don't grasp at them. Don't try to force them away or deny them. But let them go naturally by replacing your mind back onto your breath. And if your mind becomes dull or sleepy, then wake it up a little bit by replacing your mind onto your breath more brightly. Breathing in, breathing out. So let's practice like this in silence for a few minutes. So now we can feel pleased with ourselves and fill ourselves with universal love and kindness. You can utilize white light or white nectar, or just go with the feeling of this immeasurable universal love and kindness. Fill yourself with so much loving kindness that it now overflows and radiates outwards, initially to your loved ones, family and friends. And also to strangers. And those you may regard as enemies. Fill all of these people with universal loving kindness and wish that they have happiness and its causes, be free from suffering and its causes, and be peaceful. And now let's radiate the loving kindness out further and further distance-wise to all living beings around your immediate area initially. The ones that live on the land, in the waters, fly through the air. No matter what form they have or mentality. Extend this universal loving kindness to all of them. And further still, to all living beings throughout your whole state or county. And other states and counties throughout your whole country. And all of the countries throughout the world, those you're familiar with and have an affinity towards, those you are indifferent towards, and those also that you may have some sort of negative feelings towards for whatever reason. And through all of the oceans, all the way to the center of the earth, to the outermost atmosphere. May all of the living beings and all of nature throughout this planet be peaceful, be happy, free from suffering. And have your loving kindness pervade throughout, or beyond this planet alone, throughout the whole solar system. And other solar systems throughout the whole galaxy. And all of the galaxies throughout the universe and beyond. Until your loving kindness pervades throughout infinite space. This immeasurable, infinite loving kindness that you are generating in your own mind. Interconnected with all living beings. And now we will switch to the giving-taking or Tong meditation very briefly, utilizing the inhaling and exhaling technique. When you exhale, or when you breathe out white light, representing all of your goodness, good qualities, everything that you find pleasurable. Coming from your heart center and entering to the heart center of innumerable living beings. Infinite living beings, in fact. Filling them with this goodness and bringing them happiness so that they can make the right causes on the way to attaining enlightenment themselves. As you breathe in or inhale, the black smoke leaves their heart center, freeing them from suffering as it enters into your heart center, destroying your self-centeredness. So breathing out, giving the white light and all the goodness. Breathing in, receiving their black smoke. So let's practice like this for a short bit. But just before you practice this technique, which we didn't do just then, you bring to mind the difficulties that others experience, their sufferings, and develop the bodhicitta intention generated, great compassion. The types of sufferings that we all experience, birth, old age, sickness, death, sorrow, grief, lamentation, pain, despair, and the many others. Physical difficulties and sufferings, mental anguish and sufferings. And bring to mind that you want to do whatever you can to relieve them from their suffering. So now let's drop the visualization and do the dedication prayer. Due to this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of the Buddha, so that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious bodhicitta not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline but increase forevermore. And may the precious view of shunyata not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline but increase forevermore. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Namo Ratnatrayaya. Or in Pali, Namo Triratana, the three jewels. In Sanskrit, you say Namo Ratnatraya, Pali Namo Triratana. Very closely related. Most of the words, just to remind you that that's the case, you know. Of course, you could say that the Sanskrit is kind of like the mother language, and Pali is a derivative of Sanskrit, along with many other languages, especially in India and throughout some other Asian countries, and probably other places too. Anyway, so it's Vesak time, comes once a year. Of course, it changes on the solar calendar. It's the full moon day of the lunar month of Vesaka, which is a Sanskrit and a Pali word, the fourth lunar month of the lunar calendar. And it is said that most traditions believe that the Buddha was born on this full moon day or evening and attained enlightenment 35 years later, started to give the teachings for 45 years, passed away 45 years after attainment of enlightenment. Okay, so lived for 80 years, which apparently is a very long life for those days. Okay, so some other traditions believe the enlightenment may have happened on a different day, but we don't need to go into those differences. And the same with the parinirvana as well. Okay, so the birth of the Buddha, I think it can remind us that we are born as a human being in this life. Precious human life. It becomes precious when we practice the Dharma, when we work to increase our compassion, increase our wisdom, and so on. Precious human life. But it's impermanent. The second aspect of the commemoration is the enlightenment. The Buddha said that we too can attain enlightenment. Doesn't matter how long it takes. Have that as your goal. Aim for the top. Aim for enlightenment yourself. And of course, the impermanence is realized even more by the passing of the Buddha. So this precious human life is impermanent. We need to contemplate as well the law of karma, cause and effect, so that we can know what to abandon and what to adopt in our practice. Adopt the causes of happiness and the path to enlightenment. Abandon the causes of suffering. And also we should contemplate the unsatisfactory nature of samsara, of cyclic existence. Those four preliminary contemplations, contemplating precious human life, impermanence, cause and effect, and the unsatisfactory nature of cyclic existence. This will help us turn our mind directly to the Dharma, to renounce the worldly ways. Okay, mentioned many times before, but I just wanted to mention it again. Okay, so you may have seen the video. I took part in a forum last year for Vesak, and I reposted that video the other day. So you can have a look at it. It's only maybe 8 minutes or 9 minutes long, so it won't take too much of your time if you want a reminder of what I just said. Okay. So now we have only a short Dharma talk on the subject because of the Vesak, because of the announcement I made before as well. And also, I think I've decided, I could change this, of course, but I think I've decided to do the loving kindness meditation, keep it short, and then switch to the Tong meditation. I think that probably will suit everybody. I did get a few texts saying though that they missed the metta bhavana, the loving kindness meditation. So I think that we can continue to do that, okay, until we finish this 8 verses, or this commentary on the 8 verses of thought transformation. Then we can do longer loving kindness meditations again. So I think we only have about 11 minutes to go. So anyway, as you know, we're up to the first verse only, but the first verse includes all verses and vice versa. And excuse my play on words there. Get it? Versus, vice versa. Anyway, lucky I'm not a comedian, I think. So, with the wish to attain enlightenment for the welfare of all sentient beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I will constantly practice holding them dear. That is the first verse. And we've already gone through quite a few points. And I remind you that I actually have a lot of notes for this. And this will be very in-depth. And it will include the other verses. And then so when we get to the other verses, there won't be as many points. Okay, so that's the way that I decided to do it. So I touched on last week, the more you care for others, the more calm and satisfied your mind is. Taking it away from our self-centeredness and our myopic view of our own sufferings and difficulties, and our wants and our not wants and so forth. And caring for others. So caring for others kind of opens the mind up. It calms your mind. You are more satisfied, and I'll explain why. The more they appear, these other living beings, the more you care for them, the more you see them in a positive light. Because you know those ones you find difficult, at the moment, maybe you see them maybe in a negative light often, and are indifferent towards those that you don't know. You know, this is all because of our attitude. So if we care for others more, have a more caring and considerate attitude, then we will perceive the positive qualities, the good qualities, you know. Then, of course, we have, but if we reject others, the more they appear in a negative way. This will bring our mind to being negative, of course. So we are helping our mind to become more positive, less negative. Of course, we're looking eventually to go beyond the duality of positive and negative, the mind of equanimity. But it's better to have positive mind and perceive others and nature and so forth in a positive way than it is to perceive them only in a negative way. Okay. So thinking only of yourself, this view becomes narrow and suffering appears huge. I think you can think about the times in your life when you really have suffered a lot. You've really felt the suffering. It's because you're focusing myopically on your own suffering. You're not considering things outside you. And I've given this example many times about a camera. I'm sure you've read the article numerous times, where if you have the camera on close-up, the focus on close-up, that's all you see. But the wider the lens is, the more you perceive what is around. Just like the mind. If we are focusing only on our difficulties, our sufferings, our dislikes, and so forth, that's all we see at that time. And our mind becomes overcome with these negativities. But the more you open the mind, the more you can perceive things around you. Doesn't mean that you're not going to experience difficulties, but it means that they will be less. They will not overwhelm you. Okay. So our fears and our discomforts diminish the more we care for others, but increase the more that we only focus on ourselves. So care for others, the mind widens. It's a big difference, as mentioned and reiterating our suffering lessons. Our good-heartedness, our care, our loving kindness, and so forth increases. You manifest an inner strength to deal well with the difficulties. So our inner strength and our confidence in ourselves increases the more we focus on caring for others. We will have self-confidence and courage and a greater sense of calm. This all depends on our view of things, isn't it? As well as our attitude. There's a big difference between the pain you experience yourself when you consider and take on the suffering of others as your own. Once again, your sense of suffering lessens. Because in a sense, it's like we are choosing to take on the suffering of others. But our own suffering, we are experiencing the effects, the results of our previous karma, aren't we? Of course, we can choose how we deal with it. But at that time, when we're experiencing it, we have to experience it. We can't turn our back on it as such. So when you thrive, when you're thriving on the path to enlightenment, you increase your enthusiasm for the practice, including caring for others and yourself. You increase the rejoicing in your goodness and the goodness of others. And you thrive with the decreasing of only perceiving the negatives in others and in yourself. So when you think of others suffering, you have a sense of stability, whereas that stability may not be there when you're only focusing on your own suffering. You choose to take it on. The strength and self-confidence is voluntary, whereas when we experience our own suffering, it's involuntary. Okay, so that's the end of that page. I probably should have written this a little bit bigger when I did it. I did it quite late in the evenings, over a few evenings. And normally when I write myself point notes like this, because I don't want to have to wear these things, on and off, on and off. And I normally write a bit bigger than this, but it's not too bad. Yes. But when focusing on our own suffering, it's involuntary, like I said. There's a lack of control that we may feel. Even if you could even feel weak and overwhelmed a lot, okay? If ever that occurs, remind yourself of your good qualities. And one of those good qualities is caring for others, okay? So a common Buddhist teaching is disregard one's own well-being and cherish the well-being of others. This is a teaching that is often misunderstood, thinking that we have to only think of not benefiting ourselves, but realize that when we think of others and benefit them and let go of the thought of our own well-being, we're actually the one benefiting immediately from that. So don't misunderstand this teaching. It's not that you're turning yourself into a doormat, okay? I repeat, disregard one's own well-being, cherish the well-being of others. Have a balanced understanding so that will lessen self-centeredness and increase our compassion. So a balanced understanding of this type of teaching. We will increase our compassion. We will decrease our self-centeredness. Firstly, you must love yourself. Very important. If you don't extend the compassion and loving kindness towards yourself and love yourself, not in an egotistical way now, but a balanced way, if you do this, then you know how it feels. Then it's much easier to extend it to others. This is kind of like, it's really basic to love ourselves first, okay? Then it's basic and an extension of the basis here to love others. It's not selfish love, but it's like an appreciation, a respect, a friendship, non-violence, harmlessness, like this, as expressed throughout the teaching on the Metta Sutta and the 6 paramitas. We all wish for happiness and to avoid suffering. Everybody, every living being, even if they don't realize if they're living instinctively, for instance. So care for yourself and others. This is known as the 2 benefits. Care for others and yourself. To benefit yourself, you must benefit others. To benefit others, you must benefit yourself. Unavoidable. So I think we've probably got about half a minute to go. I don't think I can get any further. We must consider the impacts of our actions on others and on ourselves, okay? I'll pick that up next week. I rejoice in your goodness always. Have a really good day or evening, wherever you are. And study well, practice well, share with others well, be balanced. If you take anything from today's commentary, be balanced in our practice, balanced in your life.